Leylah Fernandez is known for looking top-tier champions right in the eye and never backing down. We have seen her stare down the most powerful hitters in the world on the biggest stages imaginable. She is a former US Open finalist who actually thrives in absolute chaos. When the stadium crowd is screaming and the pressure is completely suffocating, that is exactly when Leylah usually finds her absolute best tennis. She is a pure fighter. She relies on taking the ball incredibly early, standing right up on the baseline, and suffocating her opponents with relentless pace and impossible angles. You do not easily intimidate Leylah Fernandez. You certainly do not make her look lost on a tennis court. But during their 2026 clash, something felt deeply and fundamentally wrong from the very first few games. The battle-tested veteran looked visibly rattled. She looked almost terrified against Alex Eala. This was not just a case of a professional athlete waking up on the wrong side of the bed or dealing with a minor injury. You could literally see the panic setting in with every single rally. You could see her looking over at her coaching box with wide eyes, searching for answers that simply were not there. Her shoulders slumped. Her breathing was heavy. It was a complete and systematic dismantling of one of the fiercest competitors on the entire professional tour. So, what exactly happened on that court? How does a young rising star from the Philippines not just beat a seasoned Grand Slam finalist, but make her look completely helpless on a fast, hard court? It was not just a bad day at the office for Leylah. It was a meticulously crafted trap. But what exactly did Alex Eala do that completely broke the rhythm and the spirit of this incredible fighter? To truly understand how shocking this performance was, you have to look at the massive gap in their professional resumes. Leylah is a battle-hardened veteran when it comes to high-stakes professional tennis. She knows exactly how to navigate the complex tactical chess match of a grueling three-set battle. She has stood under the bright lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium and delivered absolute magic against the best players on earth. Alex Eala is the surging phenom. She has the immense hype and the undeniable raw talent. But she simply does not have the years of grueling Grand Slam finals experience that Fernandez brings to the baseline. On paper, this matchup should have been an absolute masterclass from the veteran. You expect the more experienced player to figure out the game plan of a younger opponent after just a few games. You fully expect them to weather the early storm, absorb the heavy hitting, and then slowly and methodically take control of the match. You expect Leylah to use her trademark footwork to step inside the baseline and take the racket right out of the hands of Eala. You expect her to dictate the terms of engagement. But the deeper this match went, the worse the problem became for Fernandez. The nightmare was only just beginning. Let us look at the raw numbers from the opening set because they tell a very strange and disturbing story. Leylah thrives in fast-paced baseline rallies. She loves using the pace of her opponent against them. But suddenly her unforced error count was absolutely skyrocketing. We are talking about basic routine ground strokes flying 3 or 4 feet beyond the baseline. These were not forced errors where Eala was simply blasting clean winners past her defense. These were moments where Leylah had plenty of time to set her feet, but she looked completely uncomfortable the moment the ball left her racket. She was hitting the panic button over and over again, bailing out of rallies she usually dominates. Why was she panicking? Why was a player known specifically for her elite footwork and perfect timing suddenly swinging so wild and looking so incredibly desperate? The easy answer is to say she simply felt the immense pressure of playing a younger, hungry player with absolutely nothing to lose. People love to say the veteran just felt the nerves, but the easy answer is almost always wrong when we are talking about professional tennis at this elite level. There was something totally invisible happening on that hard court. It was something Eala was doing deliberately, point after point, to completely short-circuit the brain of her opponent. If finding out exactly how these invisible tactical traps actually work is the reason you love watching tennis, make sure you subscribe to join us right here. We are about to uncover the exact mechanism Eala used to completely break a champion. Every single tactical adjustment Fernandez tried to make was immediately and violently neutralized. She tried changing her return position by standing further back. She tried looping the ball high to buy some time. Nothing worked. It looked to the casual viewer like Eala was just hitting the ball harder and flatter. But the truth hidden deep inside the match data is actually much more sinister. What was really happening was a geometrical nightmare designed specifically to destroy Leylah Fernandez. Let us look specifically at the fourth game of the opening set where the true tactical nightmare really began for the Canadian star. Notice exactly where Leylah is standing right before she hits her return. She is being pushed a full 3 feet further behind the baseline than her usual aggressive average position. For a player who builds her entire identity on taking the ball incredibly early on the rise, this is a massive red flag. Leylah likes to crowd the baseline, cut off the angles, and steal time away from you, but suddenly she was retreating. She was constantly moving backward off her back foot, desperately trying to buy a fraction of a second to deal with what Eala was sending over the net. Watch the second rally of that exact game. Leylah attempts her absolute favorite bread and butter shot, the sharp angled cross-court forehand. Usually, this shot opens up the entire court and forces her opponent completely out of the television frame. It is the shot that took her all the way to the final weekend in New York. But Eala did not even flinch. The teenager tracked down that sharp angle with incredible footwork and fired a ball so deep and so heavy that Leylah was jammed right into her own body. The Canadian could do nothing but pop up a weak, defensive slice that floated harmlessly over the net. The rally was instantly over. Her greatest weapon was completely neutralized in just 2 strokes. The crowd went completely silent. This happened again and again as the set progressed. Leylah realized she was losing the brutal baseline war, so she tried to force the issue. She tried to completely change the rhythm of the match. She changed her serving direction. She tried kicking the ball out wide and immediately rushing the net to finish the point with a volley. For an elite counterpuncher, this is a clear sign of internal panic. You do not rush the net on a slow hard court unless you feel you have absolutely zero chance of winning the point from the back of the court. You only charge forward when the baseline becomes a terrifying place to be. So what happens when Leylah charges forward to escape the pressure? Eala completely ignores the intimidation factor. She dips a perfectly executed passing shot directly at the feet of Fernandez, forcing a terrible volley error. Leylah tries it again exactly 2 points later. She approaches the net with even more aggression. This time Eala rips a clean winner straight down the line, leaving Leylah completely stranded in no-man land. She stands there looking at her racket in total disbelief. Nothing was working. Every single adjustment Fernandez made was instantly and violently punished. It was like watching a master chess player realize the board has been secretly flipped upside down. The crowd could feel the frustration building. You could see Leylah shaking her head after routine rallies. She is a player who normally feeds on the energy of the crowd, pumping her fist and demanding more noise. But here, the silence was deafening. She was entirely trapped inside her own head, trying to solve a puzzle that seemed to have missing pieces. Every time she tried to flatten out her ground strokes to hit through the heavy ball, she would miss the baseline by inches. The margins were shrinking. The court felt incredibly small for Leylah, yet massively wide open for Eala. Eala was not just beating her in the rallies, she was systematically taking away every single tool Leylah had in her toolbox. Why was Leylah Fernandez constantly out of position? Why was every single tactical shift failing so miserably against a player with far less experience? It looked to the casual viewer like Eala was just hitting the ball so much harder than her. It looked like the young phenom was simply overpowering the veteran with raw, youthful energy and fearless ball striking. But the truth hidden deep inside the match data is actually far more sinister than just hitting the ball really hard. If you watch the match casually from your living room, you might think Eala just overpowered her with pure speed. But the radar tracking tells a completely different and utterly fascinating story. It was not about pace at all. It was all about the heavy, suffocating geometry of the left-handed forehand from Alex Eala. We are totally obsessed with ball speed in modern tennis. We see a winner flash across the screen and we immediately look at the miles per hour graphic in the corner. We applaud the flat, fast rockets that barely clear the net. But pure speed is actually the easiest thing for a world-class professional to handle. Leylah Fernandez loves speed. She feeds on it. She uses the extreme pace of her opponents to generate her own devastating power. What Leylah absolutely hates is a heavy, violently spinning trajectory. Eala was not hitting through Fernandez. She was hitting up and over the ideal strike zone of her opponent. Think of it like this. Playing against a flat hitter is like playing catch with a baseball. You can easily predict the path and redirect the energy with your own momentum. But playing against the extreme heavy topspin of Eala on that specific day was like trying to catch a heavy medicine ball that has been thrown against a brick wall. The ball hits the hard court and aggressively explodes upward, violently kicking away from the racket face and forcing you backward. This completely reframes everything we saw unfold in that brutal match. Eala and her coaching team realized that if she hit the ball flat and hard, Leylah would simply absorb it and fire it back faster into the open court. So Eala completely changed the fundamental geometry of the court. She started looping her heavy left-handed forehand extremely high over the net, completely disregarding traditional flat aggression. She specifically targeted the corners with a ball that would bounce and aggressively kick up high above the shoulder level of Fernandez. The left-handed dynamic is absolutely crucial here. Left-handed topspin spins in the exact opposite direction of what 90% of the tour produces. It grips the court surface differently. It kicks off the court at an angle that constantly forces the opponent to stretch outside their comfortable center of gravity. Eala was generating massive revolutions per minute on that ball, turning a standard rally ball into a weapon of mass disruption. She was intentionally playing with a massive margin for error over the net, but zero margin for error in her depth. Every single ball was landing exactly where it needed to land to cause the maximum amount of chaos in the footwork of Fernandez. Have you ever played against someone who uses incredibly heavy topspin to completely ruin your timing on the court? Let me know down in the comments how you try to handle that kind of high-bouncing nightmare. Because clearly, even a Grand Slam finalist like Leylah struggled to find an answer. The raw physics of this shot are just absolutely brutal to deal with for any player. Leylah is not a very tall player. Her optimal strike zone is right around her waist, where she can step in and drive through the ball with her impeccable timing. By using this extreme upward trajectory, Eala forced Leylah to constantly hit the ball from up near her shoulders or even her ears. You simply cannot generate any offensive power when you are reaching up around your neck to make contact. You cannot step into the baseline. You cannot dictate the direction of the point. You are completely paralyzed by the height and the spin. This is exactly why Leylah looked so terrified. It was not a physical fear of her opponent. It was the total panic of a geometric nightmare unfolding in real time. She was trapped in a tactical cage. This specific heavy spin trajectory created a literal death zone on the court for the Canadian star. It neutralized the greatest counterpunching strengths of Fernandez while maximizing the incredible courtcraft and discipline of Eala. The young star was essentially playing a completely different sport out there. She was using height and spin as invisible weapons to completely suffocate one of the best fighters in the world. And once you see the actual placement map from the most critical moments of the match, you will finally realize just how perfectly executed this tactical trap actually was. The shot placement data from the second set absolutely confirms this massive tactical shift. Look at how relentlessly Alex Eala targeted this specific high-bouncing trajectory deep into the backhand corner of Fernandez. If you pull up the official match heat map provided by the tournament, the visual evidence is completely shocking to see. The entire right side of the court is mostly empty space. There is almost zero activity near the service boxes. There is just one massive, glowing red zone pinned incredibly deep in the back left corner of the court. Nearly 80% of the ground strokes from Eala landed in this exact same geometric pocket. She was not spreading the court randomly and hoping for a lucky mistake from her opponent. She was repeatedly striking the exact same painful nerve. She hammered that specific vulnerable spot over and over again until the world-class defense of Fernandez simply collapsed under the relentless, suffocating pressure. We can look even deeper into the raw physics of the match to prove this exact point. The average topspin rate for a forehand rally ball on the professional tour hovers right around 2,400 revolutions per minute. That is considered a very heavy, aggressive ball. But the advanced tracking data for Eala on this specific day was registering closer to 3,000 revolutions per minute on her most crucial rally balls. That is a truly massive leap in ball weight and rotation. She was essentially dropping a heavy medicine ball onto the baseline of her opponent. You simply cannot block a ball with that much heavy rotation. You have to actively fight it with your own full body momentum. But because Eala was keeping the ball so deep near the backline, Leylah had absolutely no room to step forward and transfer her weight into the shot. She was totally suffocated by the brutal mathematical reality of the spin. This was definitely not an accident or a lucky day of ball striking. It was a brilliantly executed master game plan that required extreme physical discipline from the young rising star. And if you watch the match broadcast back very closely in extreme slow motion, there is one tiny detail that reveals exactly how she pulled this miracle off. This is a subtle, almost invisible secret that almost nobody on television noticed, but professional coaches definitely saw it happening in real time. It is all about the microscopic footwork. Watch the feet of Eala right before she makes contact on these heavy, looping defensive shots. Normally, players use a wide-open stance to hit heavy topspin on a fast hard court. But Eala was doing something completely different and highly unorthodox. She was taking one extra tiny adjustment step, planting her back foot perfectly parallel to the baseline. This micro adjustment is incredibly difficult to execute when you are running at full speed under the intense pressure of a professional match. But that tiny planted foot gave her the perfect, stable foundation to drop her racket head completely underneath the heavy ball. She was creating a perfect artificial launch pad for her aggressive upward swing. That specific footwork pattern is the hidden secret to generating 3,000 revolutions per minute without hitting the ball out of bounds. The fast racket speed is obviously very important, but the stable footwork is the actual magic trick happening behind the scenes. It shows a level of tactical maturity and physical control that is extremely rare for any professional player, let alone someone of her young age. It is one thing to have a brilliant geometric game plan drawn up on a whiteboard by your coaching staff. It is an entirely different thing to execute that precise game plan so ruthlessly that it forces a hardened Grand Slam finalist to completely shut down and mentally check out of the match. So the real reason Leylah Fernandez looked visibly terrified out there on the court was not because Alex Eala hit the ball harder or ran faster than her. The immense fear was entirely tactical and psychological. It was the terrifying realization that a young phenom had completely decoded her intricate, aggressive game and trapped her on the court with absolutely no way out. Leylah realized very early in the match that she was locked inside a geometrical cage. The comfortable margins for error were completely stripped away from her racket. She was constantly forced to play a frustrating style of tennis she absolutely hates, standing far behind the baseline and hitting desperate, defensive balls from way above her shoulders. Eala completely removed the racket from the hands of the veteran champion. She essentially won the tactical match before the final ball even bounced on the court. Every single player watching that match from the locker room took immediate notes. They saw a terrifying new blueprint for destruction. When you combine raw physical talent with this level of high-tier tactical intelligence, you create a player who is practically immune to normal pressure. Eala proved that she does not just play the ball, she plays the exact dimensions of the court. She forces her opponents into uncomfortable physical spaces and watches them slowly unravel. The panic we saw in the eyes of Fernandez is exactly what happens when a world-class athlete realizes their absolute best weapon has been completely taken away. It is a feeling of total helplessness. And right now, Alex Eala is the architect delivering that exact feeling to the biggest names in the sport. If Alex Eala can systematically dismantle a proven defensive genius like Fernandez using pure tactical geometry, the rest of the professional tennis world truly has a massive problem on their hands right now. This was not just a great win. This was a massive statement victory broadcast to the entire world. It proves that Eala has an elite, highly functioning tennis mind. She can read the geometry of the court like a chess grandmaster and execute highly complex strategies under immense tournament pressure. The top 10 ranking is no longer just a distant, hopeful dream for her. It is an inevitable reality if she continues to dissect her top-tier opponents with this kind of terrifying, surgical precision. What exact tactical adjustments do you think Alex Eala needs to make to finally crack the top 10 rankings this year? Will her heavy topspin strategy work against the absolute elite power hitters on tour? Or will the top 5 players find a way to break through her geometric trap? The rapid rise of Alex Eala is quickly becoming the most fascinating story in all of professional tennis right now. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right now so you do not miss our next full tactical breakdown as we continue to track her incredible journey to the top of the tennis world.